All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Transcend with M. And here I am with Amy Peterson. She is going to share a little bit about her story, a little bit about her journey. And we hope that her story helps you fulfill your tomorrow and helps you take a step forward into whatever it is that you are today. Each journey is different, each one of you is different. And we all resonate with different people based on our experiences. So, welcome, Amy. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Monica. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. And we're just going to dig in and ask you specifically, who is Amy
Uh,
and how did she got here?
Start with the hardest question you could ask. Do any of us really know who we are?
I think we're a work in progress.
That's what I was gonna say. You stole my
Yeah.
line. I'm a work in progress. Oh man, yeah. And truly, I do believe that I'm a work in progress. I think life is just a sort of a collection of moments in time that sort of at the end of our life is sort of like, right, then you get this book that tells your story in totality in its completion. And so like we're all sort of waiting for the end to be able to like, what is it, what was the story about? I am born and bred in Worcester. Very few people, and whenever I say that, people say, really, you never moved away, you never lived anywhere else? But no, I've worked on the same block my entire life. I've worked downtown, I worked at a radio station, I worked at an arena, and now I work at City Hall, and it's all on one city block.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. And Eric was so insistent. He was like, Monica, you have to talk to Amy. She is fantastic. And I really think that you're going to be super impressed with her story.
Oh my
So, so we've known each other for a little bit. And, for those that know him, that don't know him, he's the first Latino city manager of the city of Worcester, which is amazing. And but besides that, he grew up with like my husband and his cousins and stuff like that. And I was very excited because he put so much. He was very intrigued, and it was like I was like he got my attention.
oh
So what is Amy's story? How is she a pillar and supporter of the community? How did she got here today? And where is here?
that's a good question.
So I know 700 questions at once, but you start with whichever makes you feel more comfortable.
Well, first I'll thank the city manager tomorrow and give him his reward. I'll pay him for saying so many nice things about me. But to be honest, I'm so honored to work for him because he's breaking a lot of boundaries in city government, in
Yeah.
doing thinking differently, which is one of the things I like to do is to challenge the status quo and not, think like just because something's been done one way for a certain number of years that that's it. We can't change our systems, our practices, our policies. And he's really challenging people to do that, and to get outside of their comfort zone, which is really different for city government where things have been done, followed a certain standard for so many years, and not just in Worcester. That's across the board. In government, municipal government, state government, federal government. So I'm honored to work for him and feel like I'm truly a part of uh, this moment in time where we're really at a pivotal moment and things are right on the sort of like precipice of change.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, my entire life has been about like I've never applied for any of the jobs I've had. um, I've gone through interview processes, but I've been sort of recruited in. And so the journey that I've taken, from college to now, has never been very like prescribed. I didn't have a particular like trajectory that I wanted to be on, other than I wanted to make a difference in some small way. Um, and I think in everything that I've done, whether it's been through my career professionally or through passion projects that I've done on the side that help feed my sort of creative spirit, have done that. And but not in the way that the position that I'm in now, which I don't know if I've even said, but I do. I'm the chief of staff to city manager Eric Batista, and so usually when people ask me like, what do you do, and I just say other duties as assigned, because every single day is different, and I never played sports. I'm not an athlete, but suddenly I'm like, oh, I get the idea of like duck and weave and like pivoting on the court, and like because I feel like a little bit like an athlete with how
That's
quick
a great
we're moving.
analogy.
Um, but yeah, as I said, I've never, I went to Worcester State. It's university now. It was college when I was there, State University. And, I'm not embarrassed to tell this story anymore, but when I first applied to college, I wanted to be a speech therapist. So I applied for what I thought was communications disorders. That's what I thought I checked off on my application, and instead it was just communications. And so when I was accepted into the program, I frankly was just too lazy to change it because I was a kid and I was like, oh, they have to be kind of like the core courses are the same, right? You still have to take all the same. So I'll just switch, at a later time, and never did. And stayed in communications, which I think was a little bit of a kismet because that's sort of what set me off on my path from college, and going right into I applied for an internship my sophomore year in college and got accepted to the Walt Disney World College program. And I was really excited because I was like, who doesn't want
Very
to go to
nice.
Florida? It's warm. And my younger sister, who was in high school at the time,
Yeah.
and this is part of the resiliency that you were talking about in the beginning, because I owe a lot of credit to the strong women in my family, my sister being one of them, found out that she was pregnant.
Mm.
And being in high school and, needing, as much support as she could get, I delayed my internship opportunity and stayed home to help be there with the family and with my sister. And proud to say that my niece graduated from Worcester State University last year and is now a registered nurse and working out in the field. So
Wow.
yes, yeah. So I mean, my niece is so independent. My sister, who's has her own story of resiliency. I have a lot of strong women in my network who I rely a lot on. But so I postponed that internship, and then the following year applied again after my niece had been around for a little while and everybody was comfortable. And my internship director at the school said, I'm not going to allow you to take this internship because you're going to go down to Florida and you're never going to come back. You're never going to graduate. It's an awful program. They pay people the bare minimum, not even minimum wage. You work 110 hours a week. It's awful. He's like,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Wait to cheer you up, huh?
yeah. And I was like, so he said, do me a favor. He said, think about some other things you might be interested in and apply for some local internships, and let's talk again in a couple of weeks. So I did. I applied for an internship for a local radio station and got it, and he approved of that with flying colors. So and so I ended up, for the remainder of college working at that radio. I did my internship and then they hired me part-time. And then when I graduated, they offered me a full-time job as the marketing director for, it was 3 radio stations in one. So I became the marketing director for all 3. So that's sort of my first story of like how I got my first job, and not really, which I
That's
appreciate now, what
amazing.
kids are doing, like they're graduating from college, and the grind of like having to apply for jobs and send your resume to so many different places, and the interview process is so grueling. So I feel very like privileged that I didn't have to do that coming out of college. And that was such a fun job. I got paid next to no money. I had to stay living at home with my parents for a while because it was sort of one of those jobs that was like, you know, I was getting my feet wet. I was learning a lot. And I did that for a few years. And then out of the blue, I worked very closely with the folks over at the DCU Center, which is our local arena and convention center in Worcester. And
Yeah.
I had worked closely with them on like music promotions when they were doing concerts, and we were playing the songs on the radio and working with the record reps. So we would work together on stuff. And I got a call out of the blue one day from the director of marketing there, who said, I took another job, pursue some other passions of mine, and I think you'd be really great as my replacement. Would you be interested?
Mm.
Well, what do I know about concert marketing and event marketing? I know radio, I
Yeah.
know music, but I don't know if I know enough about this. But after going in and, kind of like, talking with my family about it, and, I was really nervous, but I took the leap and ended up
Mhm.
there for just shy of 10 years.
Wow.
Doing event marketing and some regional tourism marketing as well, because it's a convention center. And I will say there too, to stay on that sort of story of resiliency, that and shout out to Sandy Dunn, who's the general manager there, who really has become, one of my mentors in work and in life. But she was the first female GM ever
Wow.
hired with the company that manages that, is a national company. And she was the
Mhm.
first female GM in the entire company in the nation. Um,
Wow.
she
We might
started.
need to interview her too.
She's amazing. I'm happy to put you in touch. Her stories are and really in very male dominated industry. It's more
Mhm.
diverse now, but when she started, it was completely male dominated. Still,
Yeah.
still a lot, but and so she's got some really impressive stories. But started off as the secretary there back when we still called them secretaries, and worked her way up the ranks and became the general manager. And so I had a lot of like good support from her as well. And like
Yeah.
I said, she's, as I've continued to grow in my own, professional life, she's been a
Mhm.
big cheerleader for me. Which you wouldn't have thought when I left, because she was very upset when I left.
I
But
bet nobody likes to lose a good person.
yes, yeah. And when at that time too, she was sort of mentoring me to take on a booking position there. Um, or maybe not a full position, but to do more of the booking with the agents. And so, I was
Mhm.
learning new skill sets while I was there. And so at the
Yeah.
time it was, we thought maybe I'd continue my professional trajectory with her, but in that, as I said, having not applied for these positions, I got a call from the city manager's office at the time, city manager Ed Augustus, previous to city manager Batista. And he
Mhm.
had seen me speak at an event and had been contemplating bringing in somebody to do marketing and social media and storytelling and more of the community, a broader communication strategy right out of his office. And
Mhm.
so, when I first got the call, the city, for your viewers who don't know, the DCU Center is owned by the city, and then we
I
contract.
didn't know
Yeah.
that.
And then
Oh,
we contract with
interesting.
the management company to manage the venue and book all of the shows. But it's an asset of the city. So I thought I was getting called to the
Wow.
principal's office. When I got the call from the city manager's
Yeah.
office, I said, oh no, what did we do wrong? We're owned by this. I must have done something wrong. Why would they just be calling me in for a meeting? And it was to pitch me on coming to work for the city. So there was sort of the next chapter in my professional career. And that was now 6 or 7 years ago. So that I've been with the city, and I was in a communications role for a number of years, and then did some project management before Eric was appointed the acting city manager, and then that's when I kind of
Yeah.
took a leap over to support him as his chief of staff. Um, so that's sort of the story of how I got to City Hall. I got, but I did not get off of the all. As I said, one city block. I haven't gotten off of it, but they've
No,
all
literally, you can walk from one to the other in like 3 minutes.
exactly. So it's they've all contributed greatly to my life. I just haven't gotten far.
Yeah. Well, you've gotten far in life. Not,
I've
I
gotten
mean,
far.
it's great that you don't spend all that money in gas. I mean, you saved a lot of money through the years. That's a good thing. That's a good
And
thing.
I during the pandemic, I moved
Yeah.
to
Oh,
Shrewsbury. So I'm not far. I'm over on Shrewsbury Street, off of Shrewsbury Street. So I'm
yeah.
like just over a mile from City Hall.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I should be able to walk to work. So I made a commitment to either walk or bike to work when it's nice out.
Yes. That is 4 months out of the year, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Just so you know. I loved your journey. I think it's pretty amazing. Did you ever like go back and say, what if sometimes we kind of have these regrets, right? Like, what if I, you know, went to that, internship? And sometimes, we fast forward in time. Now the question is, what if I never really had taken this leap that I took here,
Hmm.
right? Like it is questioning of, what could have been. But have you thought about doing it differently at all
Yeah,
ever?
I definitely I think about how my life would be different had I taken that internship and moved to Florida. Whether that would have been for one semester or not, I think my life would have been different regardless. If I came back
Yeah.
to Worcester, I think all of those experiences shape who we are and
Yes.
the people that we meet and the things that we do. So I think my life would be different, but I definitely don't think I would change it. I think that everything, the first time that the internship didn't happen was because my niece was brought into this world, and I cherish her and I cherish the moments that I have with her so much. And like, so that was, meant to be, right? That was the first indication that I wasn't going there. And then having, the support of somebody to say, no, this isn't a good choice. So I do believe that things happen for a reason. I regretted for a little while not moving away from Worcester. And it's not that I don't love Worcester and that I think that I would have ended up back in Worcester eventually. It's kind of like a boomerang. I feel like people tend to go back home at some point in their life,
Yeah.
but I do think that, you know, moving and having those experiences of living in other places, you get, different regional experiences, you get different, cuisines, you meet different people who speak different languages, who
Mhm.
and I think when you grow up in one place, you only know how that place operates. So when you go
Yeah.
somewhere else, you kind of, it broadens your mind a bit. So I regret a little bit having not done that, but I'm making up for lost time by for not having done that now by traveling more. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've made a commitment to myself to travel at least once internationally a year, and then to try to get around to see more of our own country. That so much of it for me has
Yeah.
been unexplored.
Right.
So last summer, I actually that was the beginning of my commitment was last year,
Yeah.
and I went to Qatar, which is in the Middle East,
Very
uh,
nice.
for 2 weeks last summer, and I traveled there by myself. So that was sort of my first time traveling internationally by myself and exploring a new city that's very different, or a country that's very different. And so that's been sort of my compromise to having never moved away.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And how do you feel that you have evolved along with everyone around you, with the contributions that you are making to our, our city, to our people?
Mm. Oh boy. I definitely feel like I've evolved a lot personally. As a person, I think that the pandemic changed all of us in so many ways. I think everybody took, you know, was forced to take a break, but took some stock, took inventory and what they were doing, and um, what was a priority to them, what were the things that we were just doing because we were on autopilot every day. And I did a little bit of that myself. I did my own sort of internal soul searching, but frankly, the safe space to share this, and hopefully this resonates with some people. But I've had my fair share of low moments. But I think all of those have also contributed to the evolution of who I am as a person, including, divorce, and, death. I lost my mom in 2009. And that was, as I said, my mom, my sister, my grandmother were sort of like my foundation,
Yeah.
growing up, and taught me a lot about being a woman. What that meant, and how I experienced the world was through them. And so losing her was devastating. And then got divorced a few years ago. And so that was another sort of hard moment in life, where it was like one of those points in life where you say, okay, where am I going now? What do I do now? Do I know who I am without my partner? Do I know who I am living alone? Do I know, where so much of your life is, sort of like routine based. You get up in the morning, you do X. If you've got kids, you get them on the bus, you get them off to school, you go to work yourself, then you get the kids, and then you go to, whatever your routines are, you just get into these. And my routine was broken. And so I had to reimagine, my life, and not start over, but reimagine what my life looked like. Um,
Yeah.
and then just as I started, and this will be the first time I'm sharing this publicly, but just as I felt like, okay, I was kind of like settled, it's been a couple of years, I'm getting back, and found out in I had some medical problems last summer, and found out I had to have a hysterectomy.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Sorry
which,
to hear.
thank you. No, it's okay. I'm good now, but that
You
was
look good. That's important.
thank you. But life changing in the sense that that would mean that I wouldn't be able to have children, or
Mm.
that I couldn't carry children, rather. And so that's something that I wrestled with, where again, I came to another crossroad in my life of, all right, well, I thought that by this age I'd have children, I'd be married and I'd have children, and I'd be living that sort of like imaginary dream life that every little girl has. And when I pull that roadmap out, I've gone
Yeah.
that way. Um, but I once again kind of took inventory of, like, I
Yeah.
feel so privileged that I get to do the things that I get to do every day, and the work that I do, and
Mhm.
work in a community that I love, and affect real change and be a champion for people who need the support and maybe can't do it themselves.
Yeah.
And so that made me realize, like, I'm so fortunate in that way. And and this was part of my journey, right? That was,
Mhm.
I couldn't have foreseen it. Nobody is a fortune teller and can say this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And there's so many other things that to focus on the good. um
Yeah.
and so that's sort of where I continue to evolve as a person and understand who I am and how I fit into this world. But it's given me a lot of perspective about family, what we call family, And I tend to call, like, the people that I work with family, because I'm with them so much, and the work
Yeah.
that we
We
do.
spend more time at work than home.
Absolutely. And I think that the work we do sometimes is so profound.
Yeah.
When I see the teams that get dispatched from City Hall to go work with our unhoused population, or when we're opening up shelters, for people, during the, you know, hot summers and cold winters, all the work that was done over the course of the pandemic, even in the Worcester public schools, making sure that
Yeah.
kids had internet access so that they could continue to, have their schooling remote. To the work that we're doing now with the city manager, through diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, and really trying to diversify our workforce, and
Mhm.
um, make our workforce more representative of the community in Worcester and the population that actually lives here. So, a lot of the work, sometimes the work is grueling, and sometimes it's hard, it's emotionally exhausting,
Yeah.
but and that's why I say, like, we're like family here, because we go through, really, we go through ups and downs, and peaks and valleys, and it's a journey. So I think the
Yeah.
way we define family is different. It can be different than just the traditional sense of family.
True, true. And I think, we all have so much commitment towards the future, right? So we might not live enough to see it happen, but we do know that by contributing a little bit every day, we are closer to that goal, right? So, and it affects all of us. It's not just for one of us, it's for all of us. So that's pretty remarkable. Well, you're pretty amazing, I will
Oh,
say.
thank you.
So, all you by mistake, you now, like, you went to school, now develop this amazing career in communications and in marketing, and now chief of staff. How does that happen? I just want to know. And I haven't talked to a chief of staff before, with the government. So let's tell me more about that role, like what encompasses, like how are you able to redirect and direct certain needs.
Mhm.
I think it's pretty cool for people to, like, it's something different that we really don't see anywhere else, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my I would say, so my strength, a lot of my strengths are in, writing, public relations, marketing. So I've done a lot of, I work a lot with people, whether it's in, press, or like working with our department heads and trying to sort of like get information from them so we can put together promotional pieces, or kind of tell the story about the great work that they're doing in their departments that's contributing to our taxpayers' quality of life. Um, and really, I think that's, what I've taken to the chief of staff role, is trying to be a good communicator internally to our employees and externally to our public. I think that most things tend to get lost in translation because of poor communication.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of what I am. I often say I'm like a navigator. I'm kind of the person that helps navigate things and helps be a connector between people. But, so I work very closely with the scheduler for the city manager on his schedule, which, if I showed you his calendar, it might give you the highest level of anxiety you've ever seen. Um,
If it
yeah,
looks anything like mine, I know.
it is, and it's a puzzle. It's constantly
Yeah.
changing. It's like, it's like a chessboard. You're constantly like
Yeah.
moving things, and um, so part of it is managing his schedule and managing his meetings.
Yeah.
Part of it is, moving him around the city. So when we get outside of City Hall and he's going to public appearances, speaking engagements, tours, ribbon cuttings, whatever it is. So it's kind of like moving him around and making sure he gets there on time and leaves on time so that he
Yeah,
doesn't
I know.
miss his next meeting. So I'm a little bit of a timekeeper. I'm the bad guy, when somebody says like, oh, the city manager is
Gotta wrap it
cutting
up.
him short. I'm like, it's me. So I
I
can come
love
in as
it.
the bad guy when he's like, well, sorry, she's the boss. Gotta
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I
I
also
love it.
manage the communications team as well, which we have a staff writer, we have a media specialist, we have two content creators, and we have our entire cable services team that produces content for the city government channel and tapes all of our public hearings and meetings for boards and commissions.
Hmm.
So a lot of that, storytelling comes right out of the city manager's office. So I'm every day fielding media requests with our media specialists, reacting to the media or coming up with media pitches. If we have a story on, with Women's History Month, I said, let's come up with, let's find, some incredible stories of some of the women that are like pioneering different things across city government. Um, you know, there's so much to tell, and particularly with the media, I love I love everything about it, but I think that a lot of it can be a little bit sensational, and everybody's chasing sort of
Yeah,
the sensational stories or the sexy stories, and there's so much good to tell that sometimes we're pitching stories to tell them other things that are happening that they might not know. So
hmm,
doing a lot of that. Yeah, and I sit in on a lot of the meetings with the city manager. I work a lot with him on strategizing, cabinet meetings. So he has his administrative cabinet, and he meets with them monthly. So we strategize on what are his what are the not the talking points, but what's the agenda look like? What did they need to know? Um, when cabinet members need anything, typically they'll come to me first, and then I'll either go to the city manager, or sometimes I can help avoid having to even like go to him if we could just figure it out so that it can be mitigated before it even gets to him. So uh,
yeah.
it's yeah, it's sort of like a right hand man, which is an old, I guess that's an old adage, but
You
so
are like this city manager 2.0.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
love it. I love
yeah.
it.
He keeps it.
Fantastic.
He's got a very busy schedule. So I usually say I'm like his shadow. So if you
Yeah.
see how busy his schedule is, that'll tell you how busy my schedule is.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I try to keep up with my family schedule. Can't even, and I know he protects his family time a lot. So that's really important too. That's
And that's where it comes. And that's where it's good to have a chief of staff too, because it helps create
Mhm.
barriers, right, and
Yeah.
boundaries for him. Because when you're the person who's being asked directly, will you meet
Yeah.
with me? His inclination is to say yes to everything,
Mm,
because he's just that kind of person, but two, he feels a responsibility to the public, to the taxpayer, to the
yeah.
business owners, to the city council, to it's a big job, second largest city in New England. And he also is carrying this new sort of you know with being the first person of color to be in that
Yeah.
position. There's a lot of people who are looking up to him, as as an example.
Yeah.
So he feels a responsibility, as he should,
Mhm.
to say yes and to take every meeting. But he has to balance, as we all do. We all have to
Yeah.
balance personal life with professional life. And I know that's harder to do these days with both from work
Mhm.
from home, remote, from our phones. We're
Yeah.
constantly connected. And so it's hard to like separate, when you're working and when
Very,
you're not. Uh,
very hard.
but I think that when you have young children, which he does, it's important because those they're moments you'll never get back. You
Mhm.
can't go back and be like, geez, missed it. Let's replay that. Roll the
Yeah.
roll the tape back. Um, and so
Yeah.
it's important. And I think he represents what a big part of our population is, working parents who also
Hmm.
want that. So he represents the same thing. He also wants to give his family what everybody else wants to give their family. So that's where I come in.
Yeah.
I can, because I don't, I, and, obviously using, you know, we typically never say no, but
Hmm.
sometimes we're finding alternatives to the meeting. Could it be
Yeah.
meeting with a department head because really they have the answer you're looking for? The city manager would
Yeah.
just be a pass through. So I can help, we can bypass that and get you right to the department head.
Hmm.
Or could we, could we fit it in as a phone call? Could we,
Yeah.
so coming up with creative solutions that is a compromise, but a good solution for everybody. So, the person gets what they want. The city manager's schedule still is somewhat tolerable, uh,
Yeah. And everybody's happy.
and everything. Somewhat,
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Amy, for like taking your time today and being here and sharing your amazing story. I think it is remarkable, and I think you are more powerful today because you were able to talk about things probably people won't share, and I am glad that you are a true example of resiliency and an amazing journey that is just starting because I mean, every day we start anew, right? So I love that you are taking life so positively, and that everything and all sacrifices you have made have been completely worth it. And like you said, each journey is something that we have to go through, and it was meant to be. So thanks for sharing that, reassuring that, and keep doing the great work in the city of Worcester. I've been in Worcester for 17 years now, and everybody is like, well, when are you moving? And I was like, I have everything I need right here.
and hopefully we'll keep it that way. That's
Yeah.
the idea, is we
Yeah.
create space for people where they feel welcome and
Yeah.
they feel like they can call it home.
Yeah, no, it's definitely home. I always tell everybody I live, half and half of my life, in my home country and half here. And it's pretty amazing that I can call both home at
Yeah.
this point. So it's pretty great. So thank you so much for sharing. What will be one quick piece of advice for women listening today?
Um, I would say to really own your story and not to compare your journey to anybody else's, because the things that you're experiencing are your own, and you can't compare it to anything else because it doesn't happen the same for everybody. So own it. I think the moment you take control and own the narrative and own the story, and is when you start feeling like you're in your power.
I love it. I love it. Well, everyone, here you have it. Amy Peterson, here with us today, sharing her story. And, if you need anything, you can reach out to her office and they will try to help you in the city of Worcester. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Amy, for being here.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Take care.